Pizarro could also keep 4/5 of the wealth acquired in the process. His other obligations included building fortresses to keep possession of the new colony he established and taking clergymen to spread Christianity. Pizarro organized his third expedition throughout 1530, and he set off once more into the unknown in December of that year. Pizarro led fewer than 200 fighting men to the Andes. His second-in-command was Diego de Almagro, circa 1475 to 1538, who had been on his 2 previous voyages south. Sailing from Panama down the coast of Colombia and Ecuador in 2 caravel ships, the Europeans pillaged all along the way, the team marching on land being shadowed by the ships off the coast. Pizarro waited for reinforcements at Coque, Ecuador, in February 1531 so that his force eventually numbered 260 men. The mini-army slowly marched south, conquered Tumbes in February 1532, and then struck inland. The invaders noted the well-built roads and storehouses along the way, sure indicators they were encroaching into the lands of a wealthy empire. Finally, on November 15, 1532, first contact was made with the Inca people, and Pizarro sent word he wished to speak with their king at Cajamarca in the highlands of Peru. 2 factors would help Pizarro enormously in his conquest. The first was the epidemic of European diseases that had already reached South America from Mexico and Central America. This wave killed a staggering 65 to 90% of the population. The Inca ruler Huayna Capac had himself succumbed in 1528, and this led to the second point in the conquistadors' favor, the inherent fragility of the Inca Empire. Huayna Capac's 2 sons, Huáscar and Atahualpa, now fought each other for control of the empire, then the largest in the world but woefully imbalanced, with 40,000 Incas ruling 10 million subject people. The damaging civil war, which lasted 6 years, highlighted the struggle the Incas had in trying to control a vast empire of many subject peoples who were not at all keen on being ruled by the Incas, who imposed their taxes, religion, and even art on conquered peoples. The Inca fight back, Cusco and Lima. Pizarro now turned his attention to the wider empire and the hope of golden cities ripe for the taking. Reconnaissance missions were sent out in all directions, and one of the most interesting was led by Pizarro's son Hernando, who reported of a great city of gold and silver to the south. This was Cusco, the Inca capital, and now became the main Spanish stronghold and eventually the capital of the Viceroyalty of Peru. As 1535 wore on, unsettling developments occurred, which pitched Pizarro and his deputy Almagro into an even fiercer state of rivalry. Pizarro had made Almagro lieutenant governor of Cusco in January 1535, but the deputy wanted much more than this. Even worse, Charles V now decided that the new colony should be split between Pizarro and Almagro, with the former taking the northern half and Almagro the southern half. Just who controlled Cusco in this plan, located roughly in the middle, was left dangerously unclear. As a consequence of his new right to half the colony, Almagro left Cusco in July to explore what is today Chile and what became known to the Spanish as New Toledo. Meanwhile, back in Cusco, Pizarro's second puppet Inca ruler proved a disaster. The first had died of illness. Pizarro had been the victim of his own political machinations and had finally fallen, not at the hands of the people he had conquered, but at the hands of his own people. Gonzalo Pizarro now named himself his brother's successor and so became the governor of Peru, but Almagro's son still claimed rights over Cusco. The stalemate was not finally resolved until September 1542 and the arrival of Cristobal Vaca de Castro with orders from Spain that he take up the position as governor of Peru, but even then the infighting rumbled on until the Spanish crown took full control of its colony in 15. Manco Inca Yupanqui, Manco Inca, had been crowned by Pizarro himself on November 16, 1533. Manco, pushed by his people to react against the avaricious invaders, left Cusco on the pretext of taking a religious pilgrimage but then returned with an army to encircle the city. The siege of Cusco in 1536-7 involved tens of thousands of Inca warriors attacking their own capital, now held by a force of fewer than 200 fighting Spaniards supported by perhaps 2,000 local peoples who were against the Incas. On May 6, Manco Inca ordered a full-scale assault. The Sacsayhuaman fortress was taken, and hot stones were fired by sling into the thatched roofs of the city below, causing a massive and destructive fire to rage. The Spanish cavalry proved, as usual, to be all but invincible, and the Europeans survived the attacks and even began to make forays out of the city for vital supplies. Inca armies, made up mostly of conscripted farmers, could not stay in the field indefinitely, and Manco Inca was obliged to lift and then restart the siege once the harvests had been brought in. In the meantime, Pizarro sent 2 relief columns from Lima, but both were wiped out. Pizarro was later criticized for not waiting to form a single larger force to relieve the capital. A third force composed of reinforcements from Central America and the return of Almagro from Chile ensured the conquistadors held on to the prize of Cusco in April 1537. New Castile. On June 26, 1541, Pizarro was stabbed to death in his home by a group loyal to Almagro, which included the latter's son.